Okay. All right. Well, today is a special day because today's February the 29th, the last day of February and Black History Month, getting a chance to celebrate this month with all of our professionals and those who hopefully one day will join us. But I wanted to get the chance to have a conversation with Kennedy Simmons, who graciously said he would engage in this conversation. And I do want it to be a conversation about what it's like for Kennedy to have brought his experience and talent to Ardura and learn a little bit about that, introducing him to all of Ardura, and for me to get a chance to know him a little better, as well as to get to hear some of the discussion that others might benefit from and getting to hear a little bit about Kennedy's experiences in life in general and some things we might be able to entertain doing a little bit differently at Ardura. So Kennedy, thank you. Thanks for making the time.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor
Yeah.
and appreciate it.
Yes, and happy birthday, because yesterday was your birthday.
Thank you. Yes, it was.
Yeah,
It's
very good.
sometimes
Well,
last day of February, except for
yes,
this year.
yes, a lot. Happy birthday to anybody who's having a birthday today, because it only happens once every 4 years, February the 29th. So, well, we'll get started if that's okay. I did want to get a chance to let everybody get to understand what it is you do for Ardura every day and for our clients and learn a little bit about what brought you to Ardura.
Sure. So I'm currently working with the transportation group. I am the lead chief drainage engineer. Um, I actually came in with the Provida Highway Designers Group. And so I've been with Ardura about 2 years. I've been with Provida it's going to be 4 years this year. And so I deal primarily with transportation, water sources, drainage, anything related to drainage and the transportation side. And so I'm involved in the design, the marketing, negotiations for projects and different sides like that. And yes, so that's my primary role.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you for that. I know that you had a really interesting childhood and upbringing, not the typical of the people that I meet in our industry. Could you tell us a little bit about that? What was it like? What was your childhood? Where was it? What makes that special?
So I'm from the Caribbean, a twin island nation, small islands, St. Kitts and Nevis. So I was actually born there and grew up there. I moved to the US in 1996 for college, pretty much just for college. I went to University of South Florida in Tampa. So yeah, my childhood, my parents, my dad, and a lot of people might already know this. So my dad is the former Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis. So he first got into politics and he first took office in 1980. So about 3 years, I was 3 years old.
Wow.
So I've pretty much grown up on that side of things. And he was in that position as premier/prime minister up until 1995. So roughly 15 years. So that first 18 years of my life was pretty much involved in politics. So growing up in the islands, as I said, a smaller type of situation. So my childhood was involved with music, whether it was playing piano. I learned piano at a very young age, classical piano. And probably the only reason I went was because one of my older family friends, he was older, was taking piano lessons. And I looked up to him, so I started taking piano lessons. And that's probably got me into the piano. And then other than that, we had a piano around. My dad had learned before. My mom was a part of the church choir. And so that piano lesson spun into church choir and singing, and also led to joining a band back home in high school. So so part of actually my childhood too, graduating high school, what led me to engineering, I could talk about that. I actually got a job with a construction company that was doing some land dredging, also land reclamation. So they were dredging up sand from the ocean and adding on some land in the island, on the island. And so I got a job with that company. And one of the things that struck me was that a lot of the engineers, construction workers, surveyors, they were from all over the world. So you had people from the US, you had from England, from the Caribbean. And so that was interesting. I was good at math, I was good at physics in school. My dad was a doctor. I wasn't a fan of biology, so I knew that wasn't going to be my
Me
calling.
either.
And yeah, so that led me to engineering. And one of the things I guess that really sat with me was after work, and I don't think it's necessarily an island thing. After work, all the engineers would get together and everybody would be, at the restaurant, at the bar, drinking. It was we'd do our job, but then they had fun afterwards. And that
Yeah.
kind of led me to maybe look a little bit closer at engineering.
So when you were dredging and doing all of that work, were you basically building up the island?
Yeah, so they were adding roughly a square mile of land to a portion of the island, and it was a part of a project to add a cruise ship pier berth to increase the size of the cruise ships that we could handle. That was one of the projects my dad had way back when, and so it was called Port Zanti. So the company that was doing it was from Jamaica, and so I was working with them as just doing field work. I did some welding. They let me drive a little backhoe every now and again, not to do any major work, doing the barge work. So I saw them driving piles in the ocean on the barge and some huge cranes. And so I got exposed to almost everything construction-wise you could get exposed to. Sea walls, part of that was involved, sheet piling to retain a lot of the engineering parts of it and construction parts of it. I got to see really, really early. And so, yeah, so it was a good experience for me. And like I said, gave me that rounded view of an engineer, not just necessarily, someone that's sitting behind a desk, running numbers and stuff like that. So.
And then when you went to college, I'm assuming you had all of that background and context. It wasn't just textbook.
Correct. So going to college now, I still didn't, I don't think I knew what I wanted to do. When I went to college, I actually went to college for structural engineering, actually. And when I graduated, my capstone project was a bridge project. So I don't know some of the bridge guys from the group is here. So I mentioned it to them sometimes. So I actually was doing structures. And part of the problem, well, not the problem, one of the things that complicated, I came on a work visa. When I came to school, I was on a school visa. I got a scholarship, so I got in-state status, so that helped with tuition a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, graduating and coming from the islands, I didn't have a work permit at the time, so I didn't have a green card at the time. I wasn't a citizen at the time, so I needed a H-1B work visa to work. And so once I graduated and I went through the engineering program, it was harder to find a job, I guess, with a company that was doing a lot of structural engineering that I looked for. I interviewed at, Kimberly Horn, different companies. One thing I learned really quickly is, in terms of structural engineering at that time, at least, there would be like a head engineer, and then there'd be a lot of engineers below that person, at least at some of the companies. So, but anyway, I was able to get a job with, at that time, a land development firm and doing civil site in Tampa. And so that kind of pushed me along to that side, civil side, permitting, and then eventually to site grading and ponds and different things. And so I did that for like 4 years or 5 years in Tampa. And then I got a friend of mine worked in Orlando with C.H. Turnhill.
Okay.
And so he got me linked up with that. And then that's how I was there for 15 years. And that's where I got most of my drainage background as well.
Very cool.
So it was good to have that early understanding, I guess, of like surveying, site laying out. So I did a lot of stuff using a total station and, all of that stuff I did early on before I even started college. So it was good to have that background. They don't necessarily teach you that in college either. So
And there's nothing like experience. A lot of
Yeah.
our employees, I find, are always asking, what training can I be sent to? And the truth is 80+% of the training and learning over a career happens on the job.
Yeah.
The rest of it supplements for sure and is necessary, but great experience for you. And so lucky for us to have it here. So thank you.
Thank you.
I think there's something else you've accomplished in all of that no one else probably suspects because it's so non-traditional in our industry.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what that is?
So the side part of it. So I said I did music growing up, piano lessons. And like anyone else, at the time, music videos, you see Michael Jackson, you see all the different performers. So music was always a part of my life growing up. And it's not just necessarily traditional pop music. In the islands, we have festivals and different countries. So you hear all types of music. Every Saturday, every Sunday, you'd have country literally all day on the radio stations. So I know
Wow.
Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton, a lot of
Really?
old school. Oh yeah. So that's something that still happens now.
Okay.
You'd hear a lot of country music, and it's a dedicated period of time. So I had a wide background of music, but in the islands, you don't necessarily think. Well, at that time, small island where I'm from, music is not necessarily something that you make money at, right? So I said I joined the band when I did come to college, and I did perform a little bit on campus. Once I graduated, I got hooked up with a band locally. Then someone saw me from Orlando, and that's how I got hooked up with the band in Orlando, which also kind of facilitated my move to Orlando.
So you were recruited?
Yeah, I was kind of recruited. Having that experience back home, I didn't mention in junior high school, they also taught us certain classes you learn to actually play steel drums. And if you're not familiar with the steel drums,
love.
But so the class, it was actually a band. So I learned steel drums back home. I had my own pier when I came. My dad bought me for a birthday one time, and so I brought that with me. And also, so different instruments, guitar, and so on. So I did have that background. I played in a band in Orlando for about 17 years, up to 17, 18 plus years. I think I started in 2002 after I graduated. And it was a group that the house band in Universal Studios, Bob Marley's tribute to freedom. It's this little restaurant that's there. And so one of my friends that was there also was touring at the time with Burning Spear, who's a reggae artist, kind of a Bob Marley era. And so he was touring, and I got an opportunity to tour with him. They were kind of shifting up the band a little bit. So that was 2007, 2006, 7. And part of that gave me that opportunity, which you never really think you're going to do that. So I was able to tour the world. He wasn't doing crazy kind of weeks. He was doing like 4 days here, 10 days there in different countries. But that year of 2008, he was working on his album. And so, yeah, he invited me to play on a few tracks. And so I went to New York to record that album playing keyboards. And that album won a Grammy the next year. So 2009. So that's one of the things you hear as a Grammy Award winning musician or whatever. So I have actually credited on that album as a keyboard player.
That's so great.
Yeah.
So I don't think I know anyone else who's actually won a Grammy, but I would want to know, where do you display it?
It's at home. I'm not like, I brought it in one time in the office because a cart heard about it. And everybody's like, oh, we want to see this Grammy. So it's like anything else. They don't give it to you for free. So no, you don't.
You have to purchase it?
Oh yeah, you have to purchase everything, even the awards. It's part of the thing. So you have to pay.
So they hand it to you, and then you have to decide whether you want to buy it or not.
So let me clarify, because that's one of the things that people seem to think. So as a musician, we play on the album. We're credited as contributing to the album, but the artist is a person that actually goes up and gets the actual award. That's at that time. So this was for best reggae album. But afterwards, we kind of sending our credentials as musician. They double check, and verify, and then they send you back a certificate as that you're a musician on that album for that year. So that's what I have, the plaque and the certificate at home. And I
Really
brought
great.
it in a one time, but I don't usually promote it too much.
Do you have to shine it?
No, nothing like that.
No, no.
In a little case, right? So
Very neat.
yeah.
Well, so this is Black History Month, and
Mm-hmm.
you do have this deep, rich history in your family. And I love that you've been able to share that with us. But one of the things I would like to explore with you is just what your experience has been being someone of color who experiences life differently than I would have. In the US, I'm sure it's different than where you grew up, but I have close friends in my circle who have experienced and continue to experience really frustrating situations. I was wondering if you could describe how that has been an impact on your life and things you experience that maybe others wouldn't be able to appreciate or understand.
Sure. I give a little context. Growing up, in the islands, it's a little different. For example, um, there are obviously different people from different nationalities where I grew up. Um, we all grew up together, though. I mean, everyone's was black, white. The Caribbean is kind of a mix of different cultures and different nations. Some people speak Spanish, French. Some people speak a combination of both. There's some countries that have a heavy Indian influence, for example. All of them have some influence of everything, and even Asian influence. So having that background of multicultural exposure already growing up. When I first came here in 1996, this is probably one of the first exposures. We learned in school about different things. Growing up. But I remember my sister lived in Lakeland. I came to university. I said University of South Florida in Tampa. So I stayed the summer in Lakeland, and I drove from Lakeland to Tampa for school that first summer. And I remember one instance, I guess, my first exposure to that side or race. There was a flashing red light, maybe half a mile from the house, like one block down, and you make a left, and there's a flashing red light. And so you had to stop. And I remember I don't remember what day it was. And we stopped, and then there was a group promoting, like, at the time, I guess it was a meeting. But as I got closer to the light, realized it was actually like a group of people, but they were in robes. It was actually like the Ku Klux Klan, fully robed, hooded, promoting a meeting that was not too far from where we were, and so on. So that, I guess, was my first. And thinking back now, this was an area like I grew. That whole summer, I would be playing basketball. I mean, I haven't experienced any kind of discrimination at that point, but it was maybe just the visual impact of it. And um, even before and after that, again, there were friends that I had there. Who knows? I don't know. But just again, the visual aspect of it that's my first experience of being, okay, there's a different, the racial type part of it. And this was probably in 1996.
It
And
had to be jarring.
yeah, it was at the time, you're almost in shock. I don't think I realized till I drove off, because you stop and then you look and then you see and you read and then you realize, and then you kind of like, okay, and then you keep driving. So I said, having grown up in that multicultural background, I wasn't exposed to necessarily seeing it. Of course, I knew about it, learning in history books and knowing where it came from, but it didn't necessarily affect me in terms of relating to anybody, because I hadn't been direct. It wasn't like anyone was doing anything to me, but again, aware of your surroundings, right?
Yeah.
Still played basketball up the street every day, and kids and not kids, and so it was still the same. I did have a lot of people don't know this too. When I graduated from college, I had long hair. I had like dreads, and I remember that first company I worked with. I had gone to meetings at the Water Management District for permits, DOT, just for the company to get different things. And I remember one time one of the owners of the company, he kind of, before I went to the meeting, he kind of pulled me aside and he kind of gave me a look and he was like, yeah, he asked me, can you just maybe do something with your hair, like pull it back or something like that. And that was like maybe the second thing. Now, that wasn't necessarily because he wasn't from America. He wasn't necessarily American, but it was, again, cultural difference, maybe something looking at it a little differently. So that was one other aspect I think I had in terms of experience, work related. But that was one of the things that I guess when I had my long hair, it kind of tied me to my culture, but I also felt like it was also representative of who I am. And I also took a little bit of pride in doing the things that I was doing engineering wise at the time and getting permits or submitting a meeting, and because it didn't affect the work and it didn't affect those meetings and it didn't affect the result in the end, right? And so that early on, that was literally within the first 4 years of graduating college, that gave me that more confidence, I guess.
Yeah.
Also helped with the music part of it. So
Yeah. Yeah,
but, yeah.
for sure. So when you think about how things have changed, some things have changed and some things, some people would argue, really haven't changed at all. But, the Crown Act is one of those things that changed legislation around employers being able to choose whether or not an employee can or should or be allowed to wear their hair any way they want to. I know that's probably not, maybe you can speak to, like, how long did you keep your hair in dreads, and did something in the workplace change your decision, or was it a choice that you made freely?
Actually, that's a good question. I actually had my hair dreads for 20 years at least. I started in college, right at the end, and just kept it going. So roughly 20 years. I actually cut it maybe a couple years ago.
Oh,
And yeah, Wall Street. No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
did
It had nothing
did you
to do with
copy
work.
cart?
Yeah, I know, right? No, so at that point for me, no, that was the only kind of experience I had with my hair wise. Maybe at meetings people were a little, you could see, surprised because they had spoken to me before and now seeing me, so it's a little, but it wasn't
Unexpected.
unexpected, yeah. But again, that was part of what made me even more want to keep it, because then I felt like it was representative. It helped to, show that it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And but no, for me, it was just a decision. Um, I was ready. Um, uh, in college, I already went bald, so I kind of had an idea of how it would look. So I wasn't fully surprised. Uh, so yeah, it was 2 years ago after COVID. It was a lot harder to get my hair done. It's a lot harder to maintain. So I moved. It just made things a lot easier. And I'm glad I made the decision. But
Okay.
yeah, not influenced by work at all.
Okay, good. Good, good.
Yeah.
We hope to continue to have everyone who has great skills to come to Ardura and bring their whole selves authentically and show up every day to be part of the fabric of this company. But given what you've experienced at Ardura, are there things that we can learn from that, or experiences you would share that you think are important for people to appreciate how it's impacted you?
Sure. I think one of the biggest strengths of Ardura is inclusivity and the variety of culture that we have.
Mhm.
And I think this is one of the great step doing stuff like this. I know there were a few other conversations that we've had since I've been here, concerning variety of culture and expressing yourself at work. And so yeah, no, I think that's one of the great strengths of Ardura, is that there's a focus on exploring that, promoting the variety of culture, the great culture that we have across the company and in all the different regions. I think it's good that the different offices get to see the leadership, and leadership visits with everyone, and kind of hears a story of all the the different employees that we have here. I think that's a very good plus. I don't think about it, I guess, too much here because I've not had any issues like that, since way back when. But what I would say is that it is very good, even as individuals, because sometimes as engineers, right, we kind of get into our box of we're gonna do work, we're just here to work. Why are we gonna listen to this cultural talk of, whatever? And I get that. Don't get me wrong. I'm that way too. But I think so sometimes it's also on us to take that time to, whether it's talk to or listen to, the variety of different cultures that we have and experiences that we have in Ardura. It helps to make the company stronger, I think. It improves the culture, which for me, culture was a big part of the reason I came to Provida and a big part of the reason that I'm still with Ardura. One of the things is that I remember Ernesto saying early on is that they were really focused on maintaining that culture. It had to be a good fit. And I think that extends to diversity as well. It's not just the work culture. It extends to the diversity of the culture and the employees. So
Agree.
kudos.
I think it's not just limited to engineers, actually. I think it could be any discipline someone chooses to practice as a career.
Mhm.
I think it's my own personal bias that continually learning and growing and exploring makes for a fuller career and a fuller life. And the more we can learn about each other, regardless, I think it expands our thinking, it expands our ideas, it expands our awareness, thoughtfulness about approaching any number of situations in life. And I certainly joined the company appreciating that the company was prioritizing that.
Yeah.
That continual exploration and sharing. And I'm really happy you're doing this with us. I should have said it if I didn't say at the beginning of this call. I hope anybody who's listening will post their questions if they have any for Kennedy or for our conversation. And we'll try to pick those up here at the end of our conversation. The upbringing I had in my elementary, junior, and high school experience was it was a very diversified school system. And there were many situations where I was in the minority in that diverse setting. I think it's safe to say in the engineering world, we certainly still see the students graduating from schools with the STEM skill sets are still in the majority of the white Caucasian student. We're seeing more females come up in those graduate classes, but we're still not seeing the extreme diversity that would supply talent to Ardura and to those that compete with us. Do you have a view on how we can influence more students of color enlisting for those educational tracks that can be our sustainable future for engineering?
Actually, yeah, that's a good question, a good point. I'll talk a little bit too about, so that's one of my, I guess, passions. So the last couple of years, I got selected as part of the Florida Engineering Society, FELI, Florida Engineering Leadership Institute program. And that program was for engineers in Florida, where we kind of go through leadership training or exposed to leadership seminars, but it's also focused on community development, community projects. And so we have to come up with a project that benefits the community as part of that leadership program. One of the things that we talked about and noted was, as engineers, and that kind of touched me also, is engineers, we don't really promote our profession.
Yeah.
Right. We don't really, and when I say promote, kids now coming out of college, they're excited about a lot of other, areas, a lot of other fields other than engineering. But once you learn about it, like, what it's about, the building or the roads or, different aspects of the bridges and how you get there, even when it comes to like hurricane relief, our project for FELI was centered around hurricane relief and awareness based on Hurricane Ian that had hit the Gulf Coast a few years ago. But I think that as engineers, we need to promote our field a little bit more, not necessarily just focus on the work. And so that's part of some of my goals personally. I think we all have to somewhat take that as a personal goal.
Yeah.
Whether it's visiting schools early, speaking at early education, kids, what do you call it? You have your career days or things like that. Where we kind of take the initiative and just talk a little bit about the engineering field and what we do, and maybe how exciting it is, because we build stuff, we design stuff, and some in some cases the building block for society in terms of comfort, whether it's the roads you drive on, the water you drink, or the air you breathe, the transportation, the planes you fly, everything, you know what I mean? So I think that comes with a little bit of personal initiative for all of us as engineers. I think as a company, as Ardura, I think we do hit colleges, but I know that here we kind of get high schoolers coming into the office as well, that we've done in our office. And we just have a day where we kind of cycle them through all the different components, the structural engineering, even accounting. I mean, all the different facets of the company and marketing, and you get them exposed to, hey, it's not just necessarily this or that. It's not just a calculator, and this is what we do. And then, you provide something that's fun for them to do as well. But that's a program, a way to do it as well, to kind of promote the profession as early as we could in that development stage. Communities of color, I think it becomes a more targeting communities, right? And schools.
Yes.
And that's where you kind of expand it a little bit more towards that level of it. But I think it's still all the same thinking.
I think it's interesting because in the work I've done in the communities, I can appreciate that even when we go to those school systems and we reach in and excite younger people and expose them to what a career could be. They often aren't in families who have these professional careers. So it's unknown and it's foreign to the child. If you can excite them, then you have to talk to the parents because it's scary to them. It's not familiar to them. So to think that their child might go do something that they're not familiar with and they don't know anything about, you really almost have to partner with the parents and the child to support them to getting into that track and staying in that track, because it's just not as familiar sometimes.
Actually, that's a very good point. Something I never thought about, but when you think about it, it actually could probably be one of the biggest, not necessarily roadblocks, but
Hurdle.
Yeah, hurdles to get over. And it's not obviously not necessarily an easy thing. Nothing is easy, but is it necessary? I think so. That would be great if those programs, if needed, could be expanded to, parent awareness. I mean, obviously that's something that would have to be coordinating with the schools.
Yeah.
But I think that's actually a great point. And
they're just more likely to stay on that track. If you watch engineers, often their offspring become engineers. A lot of siblings become engineers, but
doctors don't become doctors though.
Okay, noted.
No, that's not true. I mean, you're right. It does work.
It's just more familiar and accessible. The exposure's there. I am curious, thinking about what you were exposed to as a child and witnessing your father in politics. Has that exposure early in life influenced any of what you do to win work or pursue work in the current world we're operating in?
That is probably, that's a great question. So my dad, yes, a lot of how I guess I am or how I function is based off of maybe when I think about it, how he dealt with the politics side of his. He was a doctor, and he was for one point one of the main doctors on the island, so he knew everybody. He had different offices over. He didn't have to go into politics. The reason why he went into politics at the time was um, there was some discrimination for at the time with his land, and it was again more of a political thing, and he had to fight for some land that he had, and so it kind of he went to a meeting of a political party at the time, and then he kind of became the poster child
Mm.
at
Mm.
that time, and then it kind of grew into that, and he kind of yeah, so my nature kind of follows along that line of more um I keep calm. I'm very calm in a lot of different situations. Not necessarily reserved. I'm pointed when I have to be, but I do tend to sit back and observe all the different aspects like you would. How would this affect this person, that person? Um, that did play a role in it. And because in politics, sometimes it really doesn't necessarily matter what the truth is, right? In politics, it just
Absolutely.
matters how many people hear it.
Right.
And growing up, I learned that even before I came here. So, so that was something that I know. So I don't fall for, I, I, I'm not big on the show. I mean, I understand the show, I can do the show, but I'm not influenced by the show per se. So that struck with me. I'm about the actual reality of situations. And so yeah, it influenced me a lot. So in negotiations, when I go in there, I'm usually I kind of know have an idea what you want from experience. And if I know what you want, my goal is to be I'm gonna give a little, you're gonna give a little, and everybody's gonna be happy. And that's
Yeah.
usually what happens.
How are you finding our clients that you're meeting with or pursuing? Are you finding them more diverse than when you started your career?
Um, yes, partially because when I started in the civil side. So I that company at the time was only with gas stations we were only doing literally commercial gas stations. Whenever they had to do re-signing or they had to bought a new property or new site, we do the design, the permitting, the signage, everything. So that's a little different than, for example, now DOT, which is kind of led on to when I got to the transportation side. Most of the clients at CH2M Hill at the time was DOT clients. Um, and so there's a little bit of a more public involvement, public side of it. How does this affect the public, environmental impacts, a little different side. And then even now, since joining Provida and Ardura, um, my client experience has expanded to include contractors because we do a lot of design build and value engineering projects. So it's also a different side of things because now it's how do we build this as quickly, as efficiently, as we could, and as safely as we could. So it's balancing all those different types of clients right now. Um, so there's a different focus for each one. So as engineers, as at least I look at it from my experience as an engineer on the design side, the consultant side, you have to balance the safety of the public always. You have to balance, your environmental impacts always. And then you do have to, that sometimes does stretch into the construction side, because sometimes um, it's, you could have the safest conditions, but let's say, that situation might last 8 months. Sometimes if you can build it in 2 months,
Yeah.
that might be better, right? If you can have safe conditions and just build it faster. So you
Right.
still have to balance that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any things we could do differently or better at Ardura to make your experience or anyone else who may not feel as included, but they want to be? Is there anything you
Um,
see that we can improve?
I would say, I think at least being here, from what I've seen, communication is always key. Um, I've been through, and I use this example because in Ardura, a lot of the companies, employees that are here do acquisition, right? Let's be
Yes.
clear. So I've been through acquisitions, one acquisition in another situation, and it wasn't necessarily a pleasant one. So I could expect that employees are, those of us that are here might be a little concerned about that. So talking about it is good. Letting letting us know what the direction is, as much as you could. Is it does fall on us as well to have some level of understanding of confidentiality of certain things. But having different discussions like this, I think is good. Ernesto has his discussion that we do every now and again, which I think is very good. As a CEO, I think offices, as a day-to-day, we can get bogged down in our day-to-day engineering or whatever it is, invoicing, accounting, and different things like that. It might be good as at the office level, or to maybe sometimes set small little things. I don't know, once every Friday, or every other Friday, or once a month, or whatever. What we do here as a group, we have every Friday, we kind of have it kind of came along with us from Pavito and the different offices, but we have a something's big meeting where we kind of, talk about the week or whatever. And it's not, a little bit laid back, right? It's not as rigid of a meeting. Having things like that can help, because you could lose employees that are not necessarily used to necessarily speaking up all the time, right? And sometimes need a little push to be more comfortable to express themselves or what they want to do. So creating that environment for that is probably one of the biggest things I would say to focus on.
Thank you. We have a couple questions.
Oh, well, we do.
We do.
Let's see that.
So our CEO, he's always very, very on top of these things. He wants to know if you can sing the Ardura song for us. Maybe you should talk about how that came together.
Okay, we might be helpful. Okay. So the Ardura song. So this was when I think we first joined in. Pavita came over, and we were having our first joint Christmas dinner. And so there was talk, maybe mumblings about, hey, what could we do? So the dinner is on Saturday. There was no great plan to do this thing. Sylvia Beltry, she was, I think probably the brainchild. We had always talked. We do karaoke days, and we kind of play around here and stuff like that. But we had always talked about, she had loved to write lyrics to different songs, and she was like, oh, well, you could maybe play a song, and maybe we could work together one of these times. I was like, yeah, cool, sure, cool, no problem. And so the Christmas dinner came up, and there was talk about maybe do it for this one. I was like, okay, no, I'm open to it, and if you could get the lyrics to me. And so it didn't really come up again until the dinner was the Saturday, and on Friday,
the day before,
he's like, oh yeah, no, let's do this do this song. And I was like, okay, well, if you have the lyrics for it, can you sing it? And at the time, I was thinking, maybe if you do like a verse and a chorus, I can maybe learn enough to pull something off on Saturday.
No pressure.
No pressure, right? And then on Friday evening, so this was Friday at the end of the day. So, okay, yes, send me the lyrics, and I'll listen to the song, and I'll get the whatever. And so 10 o'clock that night, I get an email. Here are the lyrics. I was like, okay. And then it's a full song. It's not like a verse and a chorus. It's like verse, chorus,
the whole deal.
It's the whole deal. Bridge, everything. So now at the time, I think I was watching on the Netflix series. I can't remember what it is. One of those dating things on Netflix. I was binging, I'll be honest. I don't know.
I've never done that. I have no idea what you're talking about.
I can't. I wish I told the story at the dinner, but I can't remember what it is now. It will get a good laugh, I know, but I can't remember what it was. One of those Netflix dating app thingies. And so I was perfectly comfortable at 10 o'clock at night, not thinking about this thing. So I went down, I have a little studio in my at home. And so I got the music recorded. And so I was listening to it and trying to do the lyrics that Sylvia sent to me at 10 o'clock at night. And learned really quickly that I was not going to be able to sing this song on Saturday at 7 because there's no way I'm going to memorize it. So I recorded, that's when I went to the studio, I recorded this music. Saturday morning, I woke up. I didn't do anything Friday. It wasn't going to happen Friday. I woke up Saturday, I went down, I recorded it, and it sounded good. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm not singing it, but maybe I'll do a lip sync thing. I sent it to Sylvia. She heard it. She was like, it's awesome. I was like, okay, great. As long as we can have it played at the, because I'm not going to be able
I'm
to
not performing.
I'm not performing. That's what I said. And then we get there and the DJ and we give him the music and he plays it. And so that's how it came about. Sylvia wrote the lyrics and I did the song. And then at the dinner, I was just telling the story. And they're like, no, you have to sing the song. I was like, okay. So I had some people might have a video. So I had the sheet of music in my hand and I had the mic and I was singing over it. But honestly, I mean, there's some parts I lip sync, I'll be honest, because I didn't know the song yet.
I mean, you've already accomplished more than most of us could do ever. So I think you're okay. I think that's amazing.
So it was a fun project. And I think I did another, there were a few other songs that I think I might have done.
Maybe eventually we'll have the Ardura album.
Well, hey, we have a lot of musicians in Ardura, even in our office. So it'll be nice. Musicians out there, we should kind of
put them together. There you go. Lisa Penna wants to know, can we buy the album? Probably the one that you won the Grammy for.
It's Burning Spear. It's the album name is Jah Is Real. It's from the year he won the Grammy 2009, I think, for Best Reggae Album. It's probably available online somewhere, but it's Burning Spear, not Britney Spears.
Burning.
Ernesto. That's another quick funny story.
That's another one.
So when I first met Ernesto, he comes in and I guess he had heard the story. And Ernesto comes and said, well, I heard you won a Grammy, Britney Spears. And I was like, oh, wait, let's clarify. Not Britney Spears, Burning Spear. But yeah, that was a great time, a good laugh with him.
It's really too bad our CEO has no humor.
Oh no, he laughed. It was funny.
Yeah, I know. I'm being sarcastic. He does. He has great humor. Let's see what else.
What am I doing here?
Well, guess who that's from? So your friends are listening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's the suggestion about bringing our kids to work day in a former life. One of the things I did recognize that I felt was reduced in terms of its impact was the number of engineers that were bringing their sons and daughters to work, because often they seemed bored. Their parents would leave them with some of the rest of us while they went to meetings, or they'd let them shred or whatever it was, but they weren't really getting exposed to engineering, and they really already had a lot of exposure to what their parents did for a living.
Mm-hmm.
But opening that up to those who don't have that exposure and bringing them in and exposing them to STEM activities, created to help them be exposed to simpler versions of what we do on the job, I think could be something we could consider how we can make that happen.
Yeah.
Getting, again, those kids younger rather than waiting until they're ready to make a decision about what they're going to do after they graduate high school.
Yeah, and we've done that at Provida. I think that's something we've done a few years ago.
Yeah, that's great. Well, so far, those are the questions we have, Kennedy. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're very busy, and I know you're squeezing this in, and I think you even left a meeting early for us to do this, but I will have one last question because I think it might be something that would help introduce others to situations they may not be as aware of. But you are from the Caribbean,
Mm-hmm.
but you're in the United States. I would imagine it's pretty common for people to make the assumption that you're an African American going by nothing other than the color of your skin. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
How does that affect you? And what would you want others to know about that if they are trying to build their awareness and be more sensitive?
That's a good question and a good topic. So coming from the islands, and it's actually not necessarily something unique to the racial background. I've experienced that even on an island. I come from an island called St. Kitts and Nevis on an island level. St. Kitts and Nevis is like a little dot on the map, right? That most people don't know about the two islands. So, but when you hear the accent, you might think people might say, "Oh, you're Jamaican." So that's something that I've experienced on that level. And so coming here now on the other level in terms of whether African American or not, for me, it's not, maybe because of my nature, it's not too much of a big deal, but I do know that it maybe could at first, it's not necessarily offensive, but the reaction to it, that like from my side, I might react, oh no, I'm not African American, I'm from the Caribbean, I'm from St. Kitts.
Right.
It's not necessary, it could also come across as a negative, right? And so it's, in most cases, it's more of a connection to the culture of where I'm at, or promoting that, than necessarily bringing down another culture. Having said that, it's always probably good to say, oh, where you from? You know? I mean, that's probably also, sometimes I know you kind of want to show your knowledge. Oh no, you're from the islands, you're from Jamaica, you're from, that part of it is, I guess, an individual thing. But yes, I would say sometimes it's good to know, oh, you're from a different background, I hear an accent, or, it's always safe to say, where you're from.
Yeah.
I think, because not everyone reacts the same way. And
assumptions, it's where it gets us, right?
yeah, assumptions gets us, and I could say I fall in the same category, right? I've done it. So
we all do, but I think it, just because you have that experience, and as we try to help others widen their perspective, widen their lens, I just wanted to see if I could probe with that. So thank you.
Yeah.
Lacey Collins wants to know, she says she loves reggae, as do I. I just saw the Bob Marley movie last weekend. Nice. It's really good. She wants to know, who are a few of your favorite artists?
Oh, man. I don't know. I mean, all time, like some of my artists for me fall under different categories because I have a musical background. So it's not just limited to reggae. I'll just let you know that right now.
Yeah.
Like one of my all-time favorite artists is Prince, for example.
Yeah.
Just because of his musicianship, but he also, his performance as well, right?
Mm-hmm. He's an artist.
Right. He's an artist. He wrote his songs, he played on the songs, he sang the songs, and he performed the songs. So in terms of top of the line, one of them is Prince. On the reggae side, Bob Marley is more of an iconic, so he's like everybody's. I listen to reggae on the island, let me say Caribbean side. So for me growing up, it's reggae, it's soca and calypso, which is the dance type. Mm-hmm. It's up-paced. So on that side, I kind of like listen to almost everybody. I'm more of the roots side, so I listen to Chronixx. I listen to even the singers, a few of them. Luciano is one of the conscious reggae singers. And then Morgan Heritage is one of the leading reggae bands. The lead singer just passed away this week, actually. But in terms of, again, performances, singing, musicianship, they are all top of my list in terms of the reggae side. And then there's the soca side, I guess. Anybody that know, you will know these names, but Bunji Garlin is one of those. Right. So I have preferences all over the place, all over the place. But I listen to everything. So it's really about the music for me, to be honest.
You have a diverse music.
Yeah.
Menu, a diverse music collection, probably.
Right. Growing up, I liked Michael Jackson a lot. I saw the videos, Billie Jean and all that stuff, but Prince is kind of one of my favorite pop artists. And I like what's out there now, but I'm not a like I said, it's about music for me. So
yeah. Kennedy, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time, the discussion. I'm looking forward to more discussion in the future and including in some of that, and welcome any of the questions that might continue to come in. So thank you.
Thank
Hope
you
it's
for
a
having
great,
me.
hope it's a great birthday week since you didn't get to take the day off yesterday, and more to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we're gonna extend it to the weekend.
Okay, good, good. Well, we're going to extend the diversity lecture series. There'll be far more of those this year than there were last year, and we're looking forward to the dialogue continuing. So thank you.
Let me say thank you to you too for putting this together, including me and asking me. I appreciate it. I think it's actually a great program, a great thing to do. I hope others take part in it. And when you ask that, you guys jump to the opportunity to have a discussion, I think it's very, very beneficial to the company as a whole. And I like I said, I appreciate your efforts with putting it together. So thank you, Brenda.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.